What is going on YouTube? Jimmy House here and welcome back to the House Strong YouTube channel. Today, I know what you're thinking, where have you been on YouTube? Well, you guys can blame my wonderful videographer Matt as to why we haven't produced any videos in X amount of time. And in case you're wondering, yes, I do pay him handsomely for his service, but of course we're a little bit behind in that department, so apologies up front. Today's video is at-home exercises for knee rehab. Now, many of you guys know, last year I had a catastrophe of a knee injury, but unfortunately back in May, right before my pro wrestling debut in Arizona, I had tore my meniscus. It was a 3rd-degree bucket handle tear. I was into surgery about 2 months later, and coming out of it right now, I'm a little over 2 months post-op. So that is where I got ever so fortunate to work with Marcy Fitness. They sent me this amazing stationary at-home exercise bike, as well as these portable, sustainable, durable, optional dumbbell set, which I'm gonna show you how I personally rehab my own knee injury at home with the bike itself and various exercises with the dumbbells. Hope you guys like it. Stay tuned. Alrighty, first up, everybody knows that before you exercise, you best be sure to warm up properly. That is why this bike comes so much in handy, due to the fact that this is a very low impact, sustainable way to get your blood flow going and actually create a stimulus early on in your rehab journey to get your knee back to 100%. So for example, early on post-operation, I wasn't able to use something like this simply because I was not mobile enough yet to do a full rotation on the bike. However, at this point in my knee rehab journey right now, thankfully speaking, I'm able to do a full rotation. And at that point of the knee rehab process, generally that's when I start to see a lot of progress, because now I can start to add some acute volume on the bike itself. So for example, with this particular bike, you see that you have pedals just like any other bike, but above all else, we do have things in here to lock your feet in. That is a huge addition to any at-home bike, so you don't fly off. Of course, bikes are meant to be on the ground. If your feet come off, that's another problem for another YouTube video. We also have a water bottle with no water in it. So as far as hydration, that is not the case for this video. But what I will show you is as I get through this warm-up, I start nice and easy, which is why it is quite delectable, not even the appropriate term for this YouTube video, but delectable nonetheless, that we're gonna rotate to the left to ease up on the resistance. Generally speaking, I'll go 2 to 3 minutes at this pace, again, to warm up, break a light sweat, get the blood flowing, and get my legs and lower body used to the particular movement pattern. After such, I'll start doing some intervals. Let's say I do 2 to 3 minutes in a row of this light pace at light resistance. Then, after a warm up of that, I might go 60 seconds at a harder resistance as I rotate this to the right, pushing with intent to yes, get a quad pump, to yes, get the blood flowing, but to also, at a low impact, build some power with each revolution of the bike. I can continue to progress this in difficulty till eventually I'm able to push pretty hard on this and not have the diminishing return of some other knee rehab exercises that are a little bit higher impact. So this is a great way to get old muscle fibers working again. Of course, build some power at a low impact and get your legs nice and warmed up for the exercises to follow. And to show the versatility of the Marcy Fitness equipment, we're gonna take the adjustable dumbbells inside to the kitchen, just like so. 10 pounds to the kitchen. Matt, get the rest. Hurry up, Matt, let's go. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about 3 amazing, yet very common, yet also very easy to do knee rehab exercises I'm doing for myself to bring my strength back, bring muscle size back, and also increase my overall mobility now. With that said, it's important to keep in mind that right now in this moment, 2 months post bucket handle meniscus tear operation and repair, I have about 90-degree bend in my knee, maybe just below 90 degrees. With that being said, I can't do every single exercise just yet to a full range of motion. You'll see that here shortly. But a disclaimer, when you're doing knee rehab type exercises, specifically if you're working the joint through extension and flexion, Generally speaking, I like to flirt with the line of being uncomfortable, but not necessarily touch the line that says I'm in pain. So a lot of times you kind of have to develop this understanding of where that threshold is for you and adjust these exercises appropriately depending upon what point that you're at in your knee rehab journey. So for example, at the point to where you can start to stabilize yourself in a standing position and start to get into some sort of a squat movement pattern, it's never a bad idea to utilize something like a box underneath your hips to act as a safety measure to make sure that you don't squat too low too early. Now, at this point in my knee rehab journey, I feel very stable and very confident getting a little bit lower and being able to stop myself before I get beyond that point. But especially if you're new to rehab, new in your injury recovery process, that's definitely a good safety measure to use. But for myself, generally speaking, if I'm doing a goblet squat, I'll load the weight in front just like so, using this dumbbell. My general idea here is that I'm gonna send my knees forward, push out just like a normal squat, and sit my butt straight down in what's called the pocket of the squat. So from this position, a very light brace through the nose, fill that belly with air so my core is engaged, and I go down forward, knees send out, and I keep pressure evenly across my entire foot. Once I hit that point to where my knee starts to get a little bit stiff, again, not painful, but just in general uncomfortable because there's some tightness here, this is where I'm gonna start to accumulate time. So that's where these long isometric holds come into play. Generally speaking, I might hold this position for 5 seconds before I go into the next rep. Push up through the big toe, contract the quad, be very controlled on the eccentric, this part. Isometrically control the position, AKA this part. And then control the concentric for right now, AKA this part. I try not to be too explosive on the concentric portion of these lifts, just to make sure that I'm maintaining a general aspect of control as I learn to regain control and stability through this particular joint. Second exercise, the basic dumbbell RDL. One secret part of rehab and just general knee ability that most people don't think about is how strong and how mobile and how capable is your hamstring. So, with that being said, a lot of times when people run into various ACL injuries and such like that, sometimes that can be a little bit of a compensation because your hamstring is weaker than your dominant quad muscle. So it's important to have things that build strength and length of the hamstring, meaning if I'm building strength with my hamstrings in a lengthened position, just like so, that strength over time will, yes, allow me to rehab this injury, but hopefully keep myself from occurring more injuries in the future. So, with that being said, this RDL, a few basic cues. Me personally, I like to keep my hips at the same height the entire time. That's generally a good cue across the board. Now, there's a couple ways to do these. A lot of times in the gym, you go in and you see people reaching the butt really far back. This is not a terrible cue, but in regards to getting as much length and stimulus for the hamstrings, I personally prefer to keep my butt at the same height, not lean back as far with my butt, and just make sure that my low back stays neutral as I continue to descend down, and my hamstrings are now the limiting factor in whether or not I can go down lower and whether or not I'll be able to continue the set as I accumulate fatigue through these reps. So, for example, let's do a simple 3 to 4 second eccentric on the way down, light breath in, keep the hips at the same height. Again, don't push them back as far as traditionally. Now I feel a very deep stretch in my hamstrings, and once I get to this point, just like other things, I'm gonna hold this position for a few seconds. 3, 2, 1, squeeze through that stretch, back to a standing position, and return back down into the eccentric. We're gonna gain the most out of this movement from taking the eccentric very seriously, going down in a 3 to 4 second tempo, and once I hit my max point of hamstring mobility, about right here, I'm gonna hold that position so that I build more strength when my hamstrings are this stretched, but also over time, unlock the mobility to maybe straighten my legs out a little bit more while keeping my back straight and descend down further into the rep. These are all things that the RDL, designed this way, will allow you to do over time, of course, done in a safe environment with proper load management and exercise selection surrounding this RDL. And the third and final knee rehab exercise we're gonna cover today to conclude on this at-home knee rehab topic is going to be a foot elevated unilateral split squat. Now, with my recovering knee, I'm unable to currently do this safely with load, especially if I wanna maintain the intent of the exercise. So what I'm gonna do is show you how I regress one side of my body, AKA the injured side, to be able to build up to what my non-injured side can do and show you in regards to what the long-term goal would be for myself to match both sides of my body. So check this out. So if you have an Instagram account, you probably know that there's a million different ways to perform a split squat. I myself am a big fan of the knees over toes, aka Ben Patrick ATG split squat. I find this to be great for ankle mobility, knee mobility and stability, as well as hip flexor mobility. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So on my good side, generally what this would look like is my back leg is gonna stay straight as I send my knee over my toe into this knee flexion position that is getting full bend of my front knee. So I have ankle working for me, I have knee working for me, and on the back side, I have my hip flexor lengthening to allow me to get into this position. Notice how my knee isn't touching the ground. That keeps the majority of my back weight on my hip flexor, so my hip flexor is loaded in a lengthened position. So this is generally what your end goal would look like in that position. Of course, to make it harder, you bring it down towards the floor. To make it easier, you bring yourself up at a higher elevation on that lead leg. So on my bad leg though, without me risking further injury, you can see that I currently have X amount of mobility to send my knee forward before I start feeling some general stiffness and pressure and general lack of confidence in that given position. So the first thing I'm gonna do is elevate my foot a little bit more. This displaces more of my weight on my back leg so I can send my front leg forward, get as much knee bend as I can, but not load too much weight on my injured leg too early. So for example, here, boom. This is a decent amount of knee bend, especially for the point of rehab that I'm at, and I'm not gonna necessarily try to push that. I might find a point to where, again, I start to feel a little stiff, and then I'm gonna hold that position and communicate to my body that, yeah, this level of flexion with my knee, I need you to be able to master this and build upon this week to week so we can get back to 100%. So, without weight, knee forward, back leg straight, flex this back glute, find that in range position, hold for a few seconds, and push through your big toe to return to that starting point. But just because my right leg is not 100%, that doesn't mean I have to baby my good leg. In fact, when it comes to injury rehab, there's this cross transfer effect that says if I train my good side, it gives my bad side a higher set point to match up to as this injury starts to recover more and more. So during this process, I actually purposely train my good leg through its full capability by treating each leg essentially individually. With things such as a goblet squat, you obviously can't do that, but with unilateral movements, aka single leg movements, you can treat each leg individually and be able to get your right leg or your injured leg to build up to that good side. So on my good side, instead of stepping up all the way up here, I might use a slightly lower step and now work to get full range of motion on that front knee so I can load that knee with load and push myself out of it. Of course, if that's too easy, I progress down a step, keep that back leg straight, and perform that same movement. And I don't think I'm ready to show you guys just yet because of my knee, but I would then progress that towards the floor. And again, just going back and forth in sets. If you're so early in your knee rehab process or you feel extremely weak, you don't have to just elevate your front leg to make it easier. You can also very easily use something to take some weight off your front leg as well to help stabilize and just passively work through this range of motion. All of these rehab exercises I'm not married to for myself or any other individual, but these knee rehab exercises I'm showing you are all good general things that you can start applying as long as you're capably ready to do so. That's gonna allow you to build up to a certain point to where, yes, you can carry your entire weight down on one leg and feel confident pushing yourself up. To where you can squat ass to grass without knee pain, to where you can live your life without fearing knee injury. Or if you have a knee injury, build yourself up in a confident way that's gonna prevent knee injury in the long term. And that's gonna do it for today's video. We covered the Marcy Fitness exercise bike interval that I do at the beginning to warm up my knee and build up my knee strength again with light impact through that interval that we showed earlier. That was great. We then went into the adjustable dumbbell set in which we did a goblet squat, a dumbbell RDL, and a unilateral, aka single leg split squat on the stairs. Of course, all these exercises you can do at home or at the luxury of your very own gym. But with that said, if you're interested in the Marcy products, we will have their link below that you can see their entire line of products that you can do at home, or even investing into your own gym if that is your taste. Now, if you have any comments, questions, concerns on the video, comment down below. If you like the video, subscribe and tell us what you want to see more of. But nonetheless, Marcy Fitness, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for the opportunity to showcase your product and give some value and knowledge to the audience. And everyone, until next time, Jimmy House. Why'd you break my banana, Matt?
I never broke it. I never touched it.
Jimmy House. Out.